Today on the Transplant Hub, we're going to be answering several of your viewer questions, anything from how can I stay hydrated to what is a good ejection fraction to how can I lose weight after taking prednisone. Stay tuned. Hey folks, I appreciate you being with me today on the Transplant Helper podcast / YouTube video series. My name is Jim Merle, and let me remind you in the beginning, I'm not a medical doctor. So every question I answer today, which happens to be viewer questions that I've had submitted, don't think I'm giving you any accurate medical advice. I'm typically speaking as just a friend who's been there and is currently doing that. Now, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, how about go ahead right beneath this video right now and hit that subscribe button so that I can continue to offer you content that advocates, educates, and motivates you on a regular basis. Now, I'm going to be answering viewer questions tonight. All these questions have been submitted directly to me from my viewers, and I appreciate them, by the way. If you have any question or comment, always put them beneath these videos, or look me up on Twitter at transplant_help, or be sure to email me at jim@thetransplanthelper.com. That's how I received all these questions that I'm going to be discussing tonight. And I'm going to shorten each of them up, kind of cut to the chase for time's sake as far as the question goes, and I'll try to answer them in rapid fire succession. And by the way, let me add to that also, I'm going to try to put some time stamps beneath the video, so if some of these questions interest you or not, you can skip ahead, go right in the point of the video that you want to hear about. So with that said, question number one: is an ejection fraction of 60 considered good? And obviously this comes from a heart transplant patient when they ask that, but they're asking, is an ejection fraction of 60 considered good? The answer in short is yes, it's considered very good. As a matter of fact, if you found your ejection fraction to be 60 to 65, you're almost above average now, so be excited about that. A typical average ejection fraction that is acceptable in any person is about 55 to 60. Now, you may say, well, that doesn't sound very good, and I can remember back years ago thinking the same thing because I assumed the ejection fraction was on a 0 to 100 scale. It's not. Actually, most people hover in the 55 to 60 range, so if you've gotten that 60 as a transplant patient, be excited about that. Now, if you don't understand what ejection fraction is, you can just Google that. It's basically the amount of blood that's expelled from the heart when it contracts, and how much pressure and how much volume is behind that. So that was question number one. See, that was quick. It didn't hurt very much. Question number two, this person said, I'm having trouble with my Prograf levels, trying to keep them right. What can I do about it? Well, there's not a whole lot you can necessarily do other than to be sure that whatever amount of Prograf, by the way, Prograf is tacrolimus. Some people take cyclospore and other things, but particularly concerning Prograf, they generally like your Prograf level to hover between about 5 to 15. You say, that's a pretty wide range. Well, it all depends on the individual. They typically think the therapeutic range for most people, and by the way, check with your doctor, your transplant coordinator before knowing anything about this, but they like your levels to be really, really narrowed down between about 10 to 12 or 13. They like mine to be right at 11, was exactly where I needed to be every time. And if it was above or below that, they have to follow a real strict regimen to try to get that adjusted, because there's a balance between putting that Prograf tacrolimus immunosuppressant drug in your bloodstream and it doing what it's supposed to do, which is try to keep you from injecting your organ, in my case a heart, in your case maybe something different, and it becoming a toxic level. So it doesn't need to be too high. It can become toxic and hurt your body, but it can't be too low or else you may reject that organ. I think I got that right. If not, maybe backwards. Again, check with your doctor. But what can you do if that level's off? That's really the question here. Well, again, there's not a whole lot you can do other than to be sure that you're always taking your medication as subscribed or prescribed. Always get that wrong. As prescribed by your doctor, and always be sure that you're taking it on the right at the right time, every time, on time. Now, why do I say that? Well, they like to check those Prograf levels about 10 to 12 hours post the time that you took the medication last. So in my case, I take my medications about 9 p.m. at night. It's good to have my blood work done by about 7-ish the next morning. That puts it in that about 10-hour range from when I took it to when they take the levels. And they just need to know that for a baseline, because if you're the kind of person who takes your medicine, say at 6 o'clock in the evening, I don't know too many that do, but if you were to take your PM medicine at 6 o'clock in the evening, take your last dose of Prograf, tacrolimus, and then you don't get in and do your blood work to say 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and you cannot control that blood work really what time it takes place. You're sitting in the waiting room, right? But if you go in for that blood work, say at 9, there's been a long span between those two times of 6 and 9, and your Prograf level may show lower than normal, and then the doctor makes a mistake of upping the dosage, and then you say the next night you take it at 9 p.m. like you should have, and then it's a little bit too high. So I've seen people before where the doctors have had a lot of difficulty adjusting that Prograf level, trying to get it right on target, right where they want it. And it's really because the person's not consistent either taking the medication, or they take it consistently, but not as far as time-wise goes, or they don't have their blood work done like they're supposed to. They drag into the clinic the next day and mosey on up to the labs, and their labs are a little bit late, and thence their Prograf levels are off. So that was the second question. I'm having trouble with my Prograf. What can I do? Take it on time, every time, at the right time, and maybe you'll do a little bit better, and cooperate with the doctor. Number 3, I think it is, someone asked a question or made a statement, I feel like I'm always dehydrated. What can I do about that? And I'm going to add the what can I do, but a lot of times as transplant patients, particularly heart, lung transplant patients, I don't know why that is, but typically as transplant patients, we tend to be kind of on the dehydrated side a lot of the time. And I don't know why that is. Maybe some of the medications. I know that if you're on some form of diuretic, that's going to be the case. Maybe they're giving you that to keep some fluid off, or like it is with me as a transplant patient, they actually give me a drug called ditalzine, which is kind of a diuretic / blood pressure med, but they're not using it for blood pressure in my case. They're using it to help to maintain somehow the Prograf levels in my bloodstream. So, if I take that diuretic, I'm going to get more dehydrated throughout the day. But how can you overcome that? Well, a lot of people think, well, the best thing to do if you're dehydrated is to just go in and get you a monster glass or bottle of water and down it as fast as you can, or grab that Gatorade off of the shelf, or whatever it is you like to drink. Sweet tea would be good, so it tastes anyway for me. But, that's not always the best way to do things. As a matter of fact, the best way to get rehydrated if you're dehydrated is probably going to be to drink a lot of water over a long period of time. And the way I generally suggest that, and I mentioned this in other videos, I'll mention it again, by the way, so don't think I'm just boring you, but the best method for taking in any kind of liquids or hydration, particularly water, is to do the 10-10-10 method. What I mean by that is drink 10 ounces of water, wait 10 minutes, drink 10 ounces of water, wait 10 minutes, drink 10 ounces of water, and then you're done. So 10-10-10, 30 ounces over 30 minutes. Again, don't gulp 30 ounces, drink 10 ounces every 10 minutes for 30, and that will help to rehydrate you. Now, if you're in need of a little bit of sodium, a little bit of potassium in that, maybe that Gatorade or Powerade can help with that. But be careful as transplant patients. We typically keep a lot of fluid on us anyway. We don't need the excess salt. So, be careful with that. But nonetheless, water is always best. Drinking that over a slow period of time so it can absorb. Next, this person says, I've been on prednisone all of my transplant life. Yeah, you and everybody else. But I've been on prednisone all of my transplant life. I've started to gain a lot of weight. Is there any hope for losing it? Well, the answer to that is probably yes. Now, depending on how you are pre-transplant, some people are just more likely to be a little heavier or have to weigh more than someone else for their particular body frame or size, whatever. But as long as you're post-transplant eating that transplant diet they've given you, which is varied for everyone. In the case of a heart transplant, low sodium, low sugars, low carb, I don't know what all else is involved, but as I've said before in other videos that I can even link here about your diet, they may tell you to choose the baked chicken over the fried chicken. Obviously, there's good reason for that. But anyway, if you're on the right kind of diet, you're probably eventually going to lose that weight, because most of that Prograf weight, prednisone weight, steroid weight that comes on, gives us as transplant patients sometimes what we call that moon face, the kind of swollen, puffy cheeks in here. And you may gain some fluid in your abdomen. I gained some even on my hands. My hands kind of got chubby or fat looking for a while. That's a lot of times just kind of water weight, and it will kind of subside as your dosage comes down. You're going to start out on those high prednisone doses, and you know how much trouble comes with that. I can link to a video about that I call it the devil's drug. Some people call it the devil's tic-tac, but you can click and watch that video too. But you might gain some fluid weight or some real fat weight, if you want to call it. But you can generally get rid of that over time as the dosage comes down. I know I started on 65 milligrams, made it all the way down about this time last year to 5 milligrams, and I'm all the way off of prednisone. So I've lost some weight. And a lot of times I have people, Jim, you've lost weight. Yeah, I've lost 30 pounds, but it's mostly been fluid, okay? Nonetheless, there's an answer, kind of an answer to your question. Question number 5. This may be all we have time for today, but this person was kind of upset. They said, I went in for my first heart the other day and missed it. It was a no-go. The heart wasn't for me. Any idea how long I might have to wait to get that second chance? Well, I'm sad to tell you the answer to that is I don't have a clue. I can tell you, if it encourages you a little bit, that once you typically get that first call, that dry run, and you may get few of those. Matter of fact, most heart transplant patients, believe it or not, and I know you're going to be different, so you don't have to comment about this. I understand, but most heart transplant patients go in for about 3 dry runs on average. That means they call them in, tell them to come to the hospital. They get to whatever stage it is prior to that particular transplant surgery, and then they back out and say, well, the organ wasn't good, or it's not a good match for you, or for various reasons, you may not get that first or second organ that you're offered. But I can tell you this, if you've been offered one organ, it's probably because you're pretty high on the list already, maybe even near the top. And so there's a real good chance in the near future you're going to be offered that second, third chance, and as we say sometimes, hopefully and prayerfully, the third time will be the charm. Now, I'd like for you to get your transplant on the first try. Dry runs are no fun, but maybe the third time will be the charm. That's not much of an answer, but I can encourage you to say that if you made it that high on the list, you'll be back there again. Don't panic. Don't worry. So answering these questions, I'll put the timestamps below again. Is an ejection fraction of 60 good? Yes. Keeping your Prograf levels right. Take your medication on time every time. Prednisone, how can I lose the weight? It's probably water weight anyway. Don't worry about it. Eat right. And what will I face if I've already missed one heart or transplant? You'll probably face another one very soon. Time is narrowing down for you. Just keep praying about it and thinking positively, and it will happen before very long. Now, if this program has helped you in any way, how about like, subscribe, and share this program as far as you can. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button beneath. Right now is the perfect time to do that. And again, I'll try to advocate, educate, and motivate you on a weekly basis. Until next time, stay stronger, friends.